Revealed, she washed dishes at the party, but her hidden millionaire husband owns the mansion. The chandelier glittered like 1,000 stars in the sprawling mansion, reflecting the dreams of 1,000,000 lives aiming for status. Yet, in the middle of all the extravagance, stood Sarah. In her late 30s, she bore the weight of single motherhood with fierce determination and indomitable spirit wrapped in the brightly colored uniform of a waitress. Every day, she worked long shifts at a local diner, her face adorned with a smile bright enough to light up the dreariest of hours. But as she glanced around at the elegantly dressed guests each sipping cocktails like it was a magic potion, Sarah felt a twinge of sadness pool inside her, threatening to bubble over. Tom, her husband, had promised her a life where her dreams of a fashion design career could take flight. But somewhere along the way, they had settled into the grind of everyday hustle, trying to raise two bright kids while Sarah submerged her aspirations. Tonight felt like a rare opportunity. An invitation to Marcus's lavish party was her golden ticket. Just maybe, it could help secure a better future for her children. With that resolve, she rolled up her sleeves and headed to the kitchen, offering to wash dishes. It quickly became a task of meditation for her amidst the chaos. The clinking of plates mirrored the rhythm of her heartbeat, steadying her nerves. The more she scrubbed, the more she became one with the laughter and chatter surrounding her. She was there, despite feeling terribly out of place. Then, with a slow sense of dread, Tom walked through the door. The room shifted. He, once a promising tech innovator, now lingered behind a mask of shame, hiding as a silent partner in Marcus's prospering business. They both stood at the intersection of their choices, weighed down by their respective failures and dreams unfulfilled. The energy in the room was palpable, pulling Sarah's heart into a whirlpool of conflicting emotions. As the night progressed, laughter erupted around her in waves, starkly contrasting her own silence. The guests seemed completely oblivious to her presence, just a waitress, they assumed. When one dismissively remarked, "Just another waitressing gig," anger flared in Sarah's chest. How could they overlook her sacrifices? Tears prickled at her eyes as she fought the desire to scream at the injustice that weighed so heavily on her heart. Couldn't they see her struggle? Her grit? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With renewed strength, Sarah took a deep breath, ready to confront the bubbling emotions. Multitudes of thoughts cascaded over one another: shame, love for Tom, fear rippling through her mind as he approached. She felt caught between the allure of a life cloaked in prestige versus the raw honesty of their reality. Would revealing Tom's true connection to this world mean laying bare the very foundation of their family? What if he shared everything: his hidden wealth, his struggles, the truth? As her heart raced, the tension built. Laughter echoed like daggers around her, inviting her to peel back the glittering surface to reveal their unvarnished truths. Each clink of the glass echoed like the ticking clock of fate, prompting questions about who they really were. On the brink of a life-altering decision, she could feel the weight of expectation, love, and fear pressing down hard, a choice forming a crossroad between shared life and individual dreams. What would happen next? The questions lingered as Sarah stood frozen, a deceptively simple maid in a castle of grandeur. Sarah's pulse quickened as Tom stepped forward, his eyes scanning the room, desperate to connect. She felt the world around her blur, the laughter now muffled, almost a heartbeat away. He looked different. His usual confidence was replaced by uncertainty. It wasn't just the gown-clad women or the polished shoes of the men that made him look small, it was the life they had built that had unraveled before them. "Sarah," he began, his voice low but steady. "We need to talk." The kitchen felt constrictive as she regarded him, a cocktail of vulnerability and rage simmering inside. "What do you mean?" "Here. Now." He nodded, glancing back at their silent audience, the guests completely unaware of the real turmoil contained within these walls. They were the life she had dreamed of, but under the surface, it was all a charade. "What were you doing here?" she asked, anger lacing her words. "You knew what this place was when you decided to keep the truth from me." He stepped closer, frustration furrowing his brow. "I wanted to protect you. I didn't want you to worry about the past. I thought if you thought, you wouldn't have hidden it for so long." She snapped, heat rising in her cheeks. "Do you even understand what it's like to be here, feeling invisible?" The clatter of dishes echoed her feelings, the plates and cutlery clanging with each wave of her frustration. Tom flinched but stood firm. Underneath the polished exterior of the mansion, the truth writhed like an angry serpent. "Let me explain," Tom implored, his voice cracking. "Explain what?" "That you're not just a tech guy sweeping the floor but actually have a seat at the table. What good is that if you want to let me in?" The words spilled out like wine from a broken bottle, spilling over onto the stage of their lives. Tom looked pained, guilt etched on his face. "I didn't want to burden you with my failures. I thought you'd be happier without all this weighing on you." In that moment, Sarah realized how desperate he was to shield her. But it only pushed her further away. "You think I would feel better living in a lie? I want to share everything, our dreams, our struggles." Silence hung heavy between them, a tension that pulled and tugged. Around them, guests chuckled and sipped their drinks, unknowing. She felt even more disconnected from that world. Taking a slow breath, she looked directly into Tom's eyes, searching for the man she loved. "This can't be our life, Tom. We deserve more than hiding in shadows. We owe it to our kids, to ourselves, to be real. Tell me everything." Tom's fists clenched slightly, unsure. There was betrayal mixed with love, and it carved deep into their reality. He exhaled, a long breath that signified surrender. "Okay, just know it may not be what you expect." As he prepared to open the door to a world she never truly imagined, Sarah could feel the air shift around them. This was a choice, one that might redefine everything they had built together. Would she be able to handle the truth, or would it shatter the fragile foundation of their marriage? Just then, the laughter and chatter faded, the disembodied voices amplifying her uncertainty. She would soon learn secrets not just about Tom, but about herself and their life choices. Before she could respond, an elegant woman in a shimmering gown swept by, her gaze flicking to Sarah. "Are you enjoying the party?" she asked lightly, but noticed the tension hanging thick in the air. "Not really," Sarah replied, voice steady but heart racing. And then she turned back to Tom, the weight of the unknown pressing down on her. Would the truth bring them together or tear them apart? Her heart raced, knowing that soon they would reveal the $1,000,000 secret locked away in shadowy corners. What would she discover next? Tom took a deep breath, gathering himself, as the air pulsated with anticipation. "All right," he said finally, his voice softer now, almost a whisper. "You deserve to know the truth, but it's complicated." The word complicated echoed in Sarah's mind. It felt like a weighty anchor, dragging her down into uncertainty. "Just tell me, Tom," she urged, her voice trembling slightly. "What do I need to hear?" "Okay," he replied, shifting slightly as if the very act of opening up positioned him on shaky ground. "Years ago, before we met, I was involved in something." His voice wavered, the kind of hesitation that left Sarah's heart pounding. "Let's just say my past is less than stellar. I made decisions that put me in a precarious situation." She pressed her lips together, trying to separate the anger coiling in her chest from the growing concern. "What kind of decisions?" "Investments, shady business deals." He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture signaling his own frustration. "I didn't want that to follow us, to haunt our family. So, I chose to cut ties. I built a new life. But sometimes, things come back to bite you." Sarah's mind raced. "So, you lied about your past because you thought it was better?" Her voice lifted to a near shout, cutting through the festive noise beyond the kitchen walls. You think hiding things protects me, but it just tears us apart. Tom lowered his head, the shadow of shame obscuring his features. I thought you wouldn't look at me the same way if you knew. The man you married, I wanted to be that man, not the one weighed down by my mistakes. Tears prickled Sarah's eyes as the distance widened between them. The rich aroma of gourmet food wafted in, a stark contrast to the heaviness of their conversation. So what's changed? What's the truth now? Just before this party, I got a call from an investor. His voice cracked, like glass breaking under pressure. They threatened to expose everything. I didn't want to ruin this for us, but I don't want to keep hiding either. The world around them blurred again. She felt enveloped in a thick fog of confusion. Why now? Why this party? Here. She wished she could take back the words, but they hung in the air, heavy echoes of her disbelief and anger. I wanted to tell you before tonight. You deserve to know who I really am. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away, the heat of her rage keeping them apart. Do you hear yourself? And what about our kids? What if someone finds out? Panic surged within her. This was meant to be a fresh start for us. Tom's eyes were as earnest as they were grief-stricken. I know, Sarah. And I hadn't counted on this to happen. In that high-stakes moment, Sarah searched his gaze, looking for something, anything that would reassure her it wasn't just the past that had now seeped into their present. Is this it then? Ground zero for your truth? He nodded slowly, the emotional gravity pulling them closer even as her heart battled between hurt and love. It has to be. I can't keep dragging you into my shadows. As guests laughed and mingled just outside the kitchen, she realized how fragile their reality was, dangling over an abyss. I need a moment, she said, her voice still shaking. I need to think. Tom stepped back, the hurt flashing across his features, but as he did, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. For once, she could decide her next move, take control of this chaotic narrative. As she turned to face the flickering lights of the party, adrenaline ran through her. The secrets swirling in her mind were not just Tom's, they mirrored her own fears and dreams. Her life could transform, but at what cost? Then, a shout from the living room pierced through her thoughts, pulling her back into the party's pretentious bubble. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? A voice boomed, her heart dropped. What now? Would the truth break their world, or would it set them free? As she caught a glimpse of Tom's fearful eyes, Sarah braced herself for whatever lay ahead. Would they stand together, or would this be the moment everything changed? The sudden announcement cut through the crowd, prompting heads to turn and conversations to hush. Sarah's heart raced as the voice continued, unaware of the storm brewing just off stage in the kitchen. Tonight, we celebrate not just old friends and new connections but a future filled with potential and trust. The speaker waved a glass, a kaleidoscope of light sparkling off the crystal. And what better way to start than with a surprise? Our generous host, Tom Morrison, has a few words for us. Panic surged in her gut. Tom had always been the calm center of their chaotic lives, but now he was anything but calm. His face had gone pale, and his eyes darted from her to the gathering crowd. No, Sarah whispered, the word barely escaping her lips. If he chose this moment to go public with more than just a gleam of his past, it could ruin everything. Sarah, he said softly, his voice trembling as he took a step toward her. I need to. She shook her head fiercely, her own breath quickening. You can't do this here. This isn't the time. But it was too late. The anxious thrill of the crowd shifted into a buzz of curiosity. Sarah could feel their eager eyes, probing deeper, searching for secrets. With a deep exhale, Tom broke away from her, positioning himself at the threshold of the kitchen and living room. Everyone, he began, his voice steadying, the tension in his shoulders easing just a bit. I appreciate you being here tonight. I want to share something important. The moment felt electric. Sarah's stomach twisted. She didn't want the world to find out who he used to be through his own admission. Why didn't he just keep it all under wraps for another day? She leapt forward, but the guests were far more attentive than her pleas. Before I continue, Tom hesitated, swallowing hard. There are parts of my past that have shaped my life and the man I am today. Each word felt like it was settling into place, molding the air around them. But I can't be the person I want to be if I don't address that truth. Gasps echoed through the room. The guests exchanged glances, a mix of intrigue and concern flaring in their expressions. Sarah felt her chest constrict. Years ago, I made some serious mistakes in the business world, Tom said, his eyes resolute yet vulnerable. And to protect my family, I hid them. But as hard as it is for me to say, it's time for the truth to come to light. I can't let fear dictate my life any longer. A heavy silence followed, amplifying the weight of his words. It felt like time folded in on itself, connecting their shared past with the uncertain future. Sarah glanced around, sensing the shift in the room. Some people narrowed their eyes, waiting for the revelation, while others shifted uncomfortably. Then came the ripple of whispers. Shady deals, what does that mean? And he's hiding something. Conversations birthed suspicion and gossip, fueling a bitter fire in Sarah's heart. Every secret he was unveiling seemed to ricochet back at her like splintered glass. Tom, stop. Sarah finally found her voice amid the chaos, her fists clenched at her sides. This isn't how. But he kept going, the urgency in his tone rising. I'm not proud of it, but it's part of who I am. And part of who we are as a family. I swear, she gasped, fighting back tears. The world around her swirled into shadows, drowning out his voice until it was just a throbbing hum. Then a light flickered in the corner of the room, catching her attention. A figure stood, eyes hard as steel, face set in a mask of determination. The investor. The weight of her own fears became a tangible burden, and she could feel the walls they had built for so long begin to crumble. It wasn't just Tom's past at stake anymore. It was their life, their kids, everything. As Tom caught her gaze, turmoil flashing between them, she whispered a prayer for the strength they would need. How far would this conversation take them? Just then, another voice burst through the crowd, shaking the foundation of the moment they were in. You might want to listen carefully. There's more to this than what you think. And in that second, everything shifted again. Sarah could feel it, everything was about to change. But would it be for better or for worse? Without warning, a hush fell over the crowd again, but this time it brought an air of electric anticipation. The voice that had interjected was confident, almost challenging. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she turned to face the new speaker, a woman clad in a fitted black dress that screamed sophistication and authority. Who are you? Tom asked, confusion etched across his face as the strangers in the room began whispering among themselves again. I'm Vanessa, she declared, stepping forward as if the world teetered on the precipice of her words. And you might find my relationship to this gathering quite interesting. Loosened strands of her hair fell to her shoulders, framing a face that was both enchanting and intimidating. Interesting how? Sarah couldn't help but question, desperation tightening her grip on the counter behind her. Let me finish, Vanessa said, her calm demeanor unsettling. She clicked her tongue lightly, casting a glance around the now silent crowd. I've watched the Morrison family from a distance. I see the way you all interact, how tightly you hold on to the smiles and connections, but... She paused, taking a deep breath that seemed to amplify the tension. There's more to the story than you let on. There's another name hidden behind all this. Rumors of the name rippled through the crowd, a mere whisper almost drowned out by the storm of thoughts raging in Sarah's mind. She glanced at Tom, who now stood rigid, his eyes reflecting the same shock she felt. What are you talking about? Tom finally asked, a hint of defensiveness creeping into his voice. I know about your past, Tom, Vanessa continued, her tone sharp and penetrating. But I also know what you've worked hard to build, what you've fought to overcome. You may feel like a foundation is crumbling, but sometimes those very foundations can lead to something extraordinary. If this is some sort of twisted game, Sarah began, but Vanessa interrupted her, raising a hand. Not a game, Sarah. A revelation. She took a few steps closer, her gaze unwavering. I'm here to tell you this, your husband isn't just a man of mistakes. He is a man tied into a legacy, much bigger than either of you realize. A weight settled over Sarah, pressing down on her even as the curiosity of the guests swirled like autumn leaves. Tom's face flushed, a mix of embarrassment and confusion warping in his expression as he shook his head. Legacy? What do you mean? Tom replied, his voice shaky yet searching. It's time we address the truth about whose mansion this really is, Vanessa stated, finally unleashing the punchline that hung in the air. You might call it your family home. But it belongs to someone who has watched over you all along. Gasps filled the room again, this time mingled with the hushed notes of surprise and confusion. Several guests shifted, attention divided between Sarah, Tom, and Vanessa. Through the chaos, Sarah felt a flicker of hope and fear like firelight dancing in the dark. Tom, who does she mean? Sarah could barely breathe. There was truth lurking in Vanessa's words, a truth she sensed without even knowing it, like hearing an echo without knowing the source, but before Tom could respond, Vanessa settled her gaze directly on him, a profound seriousness in her eyes. You have a choice, she declared. Will you embrace this legacy, accept the help that comes with it, or do you let it slip through your fingers? Sarah could barely keep up. The question spun wildly in her head. If what Vanessa said was true, what would that mean for their family? Could Tom's past still affect their future? Just then, the investor from earlier leaned in, eyes glinting with curiosity, waiting for an answer. Tom's eyes locked with Sarah's, uncertainty flooding between them. He opened his mouth, searching for the right words, but the world felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for the truth to spill forth. In that moment of vulnerability, Sarah realized how fragile their path was. The clock was ticking, and everything was about to leap into the unknown. What are you going to choose, Tom? She whispered, not sure if she wanted to hear the answer. Would he step forward into that legacy, or walk away from everything they had built? The tension crackled as the room hung in suspense. Time seemed to stretch infinitely as Tom's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The weight of the atmosphere felt heavier, thick with unspoken possibilities. Sarah held her breath, an urge to scream rippling beneath her skin. All eyes were on him, waiting for his words to break through the silence. Vanessa, I don't know what you're talking about, he finally stuttered, his voice barely above a whisper but dripping with desperation. You can't just what, Tom? Vanessa cut in, fierce determination flashing in her eyes. Deny the reality of your inheritance? The truth is in the walls of this house and beneath its floors. Sarah's heart raced. An inheritance? What was he holding back? The whispers among the guests grew prouder, a cocktail of intrigue and gossip, each guest teetering on the edge of scandal. Tom, does she? Sarah began, her voice trembling, but Vanessa turned to her. Sarah, listen. Your family has lived in shadows, unwittingly under the legacy of a name that could not only uplift but redefine everything you've known. It's time to confront it. Tom lifted his gaze, finally meeting Sarah's questioning eyes. Reluctance etched his features, and Sarah felt the surge of emotions rise within her, a whirlwind of fear, anger, and a flicker of hope. What could this mean for their family? Tom, she urged softly, stepping closer. You need to tell me. Who is this about? He sighed heavily, a sound filled with years of repressed struggle. I was going to tell you, he mumbled. I didn't think it mattered anymore. I thought we were past it. Past what? The impatience climbed in Sarah, her chest tightening. Your past or the truth? Tom's silence was an aching void. Vanessa, sensing the pivot in this drama, leaned in. Tom, you have a lineage of power. Potential that's yours by birthright. A chance to step into a world where your choices shape your legacy. Tom raised his chin slightly, defiance mingled in his uncertainty. What does that even look like? If I open that door, it could destroy everything Sarah and I have built. The crowd, hungry for more than just their words, gasped collectively. The shift hung heavily, like mist over a wide, uncharted sea. Sarah's heart ached. Would Tom really let that opportunity slip through his fingers? Tom's eyes darted around the room, searching for allies, yet all faces merely mirrored his inner turmoil. People fight for legacies, Vanessa pressed. Do you want to keep running from yours? Or are you ready to take hold? Tension escalated palpably. The silence became deafening, crackling like static electricity in the air. Sarah's hands clenched, every fiber in her being wanting to shout at him to choose something. Choose her, choose them. Tom, please. Her voice wavered, digging deep. In that heartbeat, the man she loved stood at a crossroads, and Sarah felt the world narrow to that singular moment. Each breath tasted like uncharted possibility, hanging on his next words. At what cost? Tom finally questioned, raw vulnerability apparent. What am I sacrificing to find out who I am, who I was meant to be? And what are we sacrificing by not knowing? Vanessa challenged fiercely. The noise of the party faded into a distant hum as the gravity of his decision loomed over them. Tom's mouth opened, but the words hung, waiting like dew in the dawn. What if this is just the beginning for us? Sarah whispered again, her voice barely a breath, laced with a plea for clarity amidst all the chaos. Just then, the sound of a phone chiming broke through the tension, startling everyone back to the present. What now? As all heads turned and eyes flickered toward the distraction, Sarah's heart raced again, wondering if the noise would unfurl the truth or bury it deeper still. Would Tom make a choice, or was the path too rugged to tread? The room buzzed with whispers, each guest leaning closer, straining to hear the ringing phone's owner. It felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters, and Sarah briefly felt hope. Maybe this interruption would give Tom the chance he needed. But the phone only rang louder, and its persistent chime was like a countdown to a decision that felt crushingly inevitable. Tom, answer it, Sarah urged, desperation creeping into her voice. Maybe it's important. He stood frozen, his eyes glazed over, grappling with the weight of what was unfolding. There was a storm of thoughts swirling in his mind, and she could see it, each one crashing against the other. Finally, Tom's hand reached out and grabbed the phone from his pocket. With one shaky breath, he hit the button and raised it to his ear. Hello. The room held its collective breath. Breaths were shallow, hearts echoed loudly, and it felt as though time bent again, momentarily freezing everything but Tom. Yeah, this is Tom. He paused, his gaze flickering back to Sarah, panic woven into his expression. Each word he spoke seemed to tether him more tightly to a reality he wasn't ready to face. Wait, what? He leaned back slightly as if the voice on the other end had hit him physically. Are you sure? With every syllable, Sarah's heart sank deeper. We can discuss it in person. No, I can't just drop everything right now. Tom's voice grew louder, and some guests exchanged quizzical glances, confusion etched on their faces. What is happening? Sarah whispered, stepping even closer, her heart racing with both fear and anticipation. Tom shook his head. No, I need to talk to my wife. He shot a sharp glance in Sarah's direction, the word wife clinging to the intense air between them, causing her breath to catch. Wife? Vanessa raised an eyebrow, and Sarah felt an old hurt bubble up. For the first time in months, the weight of their unspoken promises pressed down on her. Tom nodded into the phone, oblivious to the whispers flying around him. I'll meet you. The call ended abruptly, and the phone slipped from his hand, clattering against the table. What was that all about? Sarah pressed, her voice laced with a mix of curiosity and concern. He was silent for a moment, his expression pinched with conflict. She waited, squeezing his arm gently, willing him to open up. They want to discuss options. About my family's estate. He ran a hand over his face as if trying to wipe away the gravity of those words. Options? Vanessa echoed, sounding both intrigued and wary. You mean the inheritance? Tom nodded, looking more uncertain with each passing second. It's not just about the money, it's about power, influence. I don't know if I want any of it. Then you walk away. Sarah urged, desperately wanting him to choose her, their life together instead of this shadowy legacy that loomed over them. Tom sighed, looking away, deep in thought. The hesitation was maddening, and the tension crackled like an electric wire about to snap. Don't you see? Vanessa interjected, her tone sharp. This could provide a platform for you to create something real. To be part of something greater than yourself. You could change everything. But Sarah's heart pounded as she watched the internal battle in Tom's eyes, feeling as if they were standing at the edge of a cliff. Tom, you have a choice. Just remember who you are. You can choose us. Can we really stay true to ourselves? He asked quietly, the question hanging heavily in the space between them. Silence stretched again, heavy with possibilities unmet. Just then, the crowd erupted into murmurs, drawing their attention toward a figure near the entrance. A woman had stepped into the room, her presence radiating confidence and wealth. The guests began whispering excitedly, their glances darting toward Sarah and Tom with fresh curiosity. Who is she? Sarah asked, intrigued but guarding her heart against whatever shift this new arrival would create, and as Tom turned slowly to face the newcomer, a chill shot down Sarah's spine. What more could this event bring into their already complicated lives? Would it change everything again? The woman strode into the room with a grace that seemed almost otherworldly. Her hair cascaded in dark waves, and the red dress she wore hugged her figure perfectly. She exuded an air of authority, the kind that drew eyes and commanded respect. Guests whispered among themselves, fingers pointed, intrigue painted across their faces. Sarah felt her stomach drop at the sight. Who was this woman, and why did her arrival feel like a thunderclap in the storm brewing inside of Tom? As the newcomer approached, Tom, still caught in the web of his own thoughts, didn't even notice her until she was nearly upon him. Sarah wanted to reach out, to grab his arm and pull him back to her, to shield him from whatever this woman might represent. Tom, the woman said, her voice smooth but laced with a hint of expectation. I'm glad you could make it. Madeline, Tom responded, taking a small step back as if the name alone could trigger some hidden alarm in him. What are you doing here? She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. I thought it was time we had a proper talk about the estate. Our estate. Estate? Sarah's whisper broke through the charged air. Her heart raced at the mention of the term, sensing that the stakes were higher than she originally thought. Tom still seemed frozen, grappling with Madeline's presence as if it were an avalanche ready to bury him. He faltered. I'm not sure I'm ready. Madeline tilted her head slightly, her eyes narrowing as she assessed him. You've always been one to hesitate, haven't you? Your family never had time for weakness. There was an edge to her words, one that made Sarah's gut twist. She could tell this caught Tom off guard, his emotional armor cracking. Don't talk to him like that, Sarah interjected, stepping forward. A surge of adrenaline shot through her. He deserves to take his time, to make his own choices. Madeline's gaze darted from Sarah to Tom, amusement dancing in her eyes. And who are you again? A colleague? A friend? Her mocking tone hung behind her quick quips, sharp and condescending. More than that, Sarah replied defiantly, even as her voice trembled. She could feel every gaze in the room pinpointed on them, anticipation thickening the air like fog. He's only got one life to live, and he shouldn't waste it on decisions made before he was born. That's bold of you, but boldness does not come without risk. Madeline leaned closer, her perfume overpowering. Tom, dear, reaching for greatness often means letting go of the ordinary. Tom's face was the picture of conflict, caught between two worlds. Sarah looked deeply into his eyes, willing him to see the truth that shimmered in their shared past. The laughter, the late-night pizza, the plans they made but never acted on, they hung in the air, begging Tom to remember what mattered. "Are you really going to let her pull you away from what we have?" Sarah whispered, the words filled with desperation. The weight of those moments rushed back, threatening to drown them both. Madeline straightened, an imperious elegance overshadowing her. "I believe you're mistaken if you think this is only about Tom's heart. It's about how he fits into a legacy, his family's legacy." The realization wrapped around Sarah, constricting her breath. What if she was wrong? What if this was about more than love? As the silence hung, heavy with everything unspoken, Tom blinked slowly, a storm brewing behind his gaze. "I need time," he murmured, but the uncertainty in his voice revealed a fracture. And then, as if to cut through all the tension, the lights flickered momentarily, plunging the room into brief darkness. Gasps filled the air, voices mixed in confusion. When the lights came back on, Madeline stood closer to Tom, as if tethering her influence around him. Things were shifting. Over which side would he ultimately fall? As guests resumed their chatter, the atmosphere grew electric, laden with expectations. Sarah breathed, feeling the ground beneath her tremble. "What will you choose?" Matters of the heart were complex, but what if this choice, this moment held the power to define their futures? In the swirl of emotions, Sarah felt the looming question settle over them both: could love withstand the shadow of a legacy? The murmur of uncertainty rippled through the crowd, a tension so thick it felt like a defining moment. Tom's gaze flitted between Sarah and Madeline, caught like a deer in headlights. In his eyes, Sarah saw confusion and fear, but also a glimmer of the determination they both shared. "Tom, please," Sarah urged, her voice steady despite the quickening pulse in her throat. "This isn't just about the estate or your family legacy. It's about us, what we've built, and what we could still build together." Madeline laughed softly, a sound that felt more like a dagger. "How quaint. A fairy tale, sweet as it is, often ends in despair. Your us cannot compete with a legacy that demands respect." Her words echoed harshly, an accusation that felt all too real. "And maybe that's where you're wrong," Tom finally spoke, his voice gathering strength. "Maybe I'm tired of living up to expectations I never chose. Maybe it's time I decide what kind of life I want, without the burden of my family's shadow." For a fleeting moment, Sarah thought the storm was shifting in their favor. But then Madeline's expression hardened, her smile collapsing into something that felt like contempt. "You think you can just walk away from your duty? From your blood? Your family won't allow it, Tom. They'll fight you." "I don't care," Tom replied vehemently, taking a reluctant step toward Sarah. "I have to think for myself." The resolve in his voice was palpable, igniting a spark of hope in Sarah. Madeline crossed her arms, a cold demeanor settling around her. "And what do you plan to do, exactly? Run off with your friend?" She gestured dramatically at Sarah, spitting the word out like it was poison. "Better than living a life that isn't mine to begin with," Tom shot back, refusing to back down. The tension snapped like a tightly drawn wire. Suddenly, an unfamiliar voice chimed in from the sidelines, a guest who had been watching the unfolding drama with keen interest. "Isn't it true, Madeline? The estate wouldn't be worth a dime if it lost its heart. Sometimes the legacy is in the connections we choose, not the ones we're born into." Gasps rippled through the crowd again, an undercurrent of support for Tom emerging amidst the whispers. For the first time, people began to rally quietly behind him, a collective sigh of empathy breathing life into his struggle. Tom's eyes brightened, taking encouragement from the unexpected ally. "See? It's not just about obligation. It's also about love, about finding happiness." Madeline's features twisted into a snarl. "Love?" she echoed. "Love doesn't pay the bills, Tom. Love doesn't bring power. You are making a grave mistake." But he, filled with newfound determination, turned towards Sarah and reached for her hand, grounding himself in her presence. "I trust my heart over any estate," he said, a quiet intensity hardening his resolve. As the room watched in rapt disbelief, it felt like the world had tilted on its axis. People leaned in closer, the atmosphere crackling with anticipation for whatever would come next. "Tom," Sarah whispered, squeezing his hand tightly. "Whatever happens, remember this moment. It's just the beginning. You have a choice." Then, almost as if on cue, the lights flickered again, plunging everything into brief darkness. A voice boomed from the back, "The real question is what your family will do in response." When the lights flickered back on, Tom's heart raced. Disbelief and anticipation painted every face in the room. Would his family respond with fury? Would they come after him? And more importantly, what would be the price for love and freedom? As whispers grew louder and more chaotic, a sudden panic emerged. "Tom! We need to leave, now." He had to make a choice quickly, but as the weight of those watching bore down on him, the question loomed larger: was he ready to risk everything for a love that could be crushed by a legacy he never wanted? In that moment, with no clear path ahead, Sarah breathed heavily, trapped in the uncertainty of the future. Tom's heart thundered in his chest as he looked around the room, the faces of friends and strangers swirling together in a dizzying combination of anticipation and judgment. He felt the ground beneath him tremble, not just from the stakes that had piled higher than ever, but with the realization that he was staring down the potential of a new dawn while grappling with an ancient shadow. "Tom," Sarah whispered, her grip on his hand steady, anchoring him as he fought through the storm of emotions. "You know what you have to do." Her words sparked something deep within him. Courage. The kind that comes not from the absence of fear, but from the decision to act in spite of it. He inhaled deeply, searching for the clarity that felt just out of reach. "You're right," he finally said, addressing the crowd though his eyes locked firmly on Sarah. "I didn't choose this legacy, but I won't let it choose me either. I refuse to live under the weight of a name that doesn't reflect who I am." A wave of murmurs surged through the audience, a mixed chorus of disbelief and encouragement. Suspicious eyes darted between him and Madeline, whose annoyed expression revealed the power struggle unfolding. "I may come from one world, but I'm forging my own path," Tom continued, the fire of resolve igniting in his voice. "I won't hide in the shadows any longer. I love my family, and will create a future that's ours, that's built on love and honesty, not fear. Tie your future to her, and your past will crush you." Madeline shot back, desperation splintering her confidence. "Without the legacy, without the estate, you'll be nothing, Tom." "No," he shot back firmly. "I'm not nothing. I'm a husband and a father first, and that's worth far more than power or prestige." And in that moment, he turned to Sarah, his heart open wide. "Together, we can build something incredible. And we will do it without hiding any part of ourselves." Still holding his gaze, Sarah felt the tightness in her chest begin to loosen, hope swelling where fear once was. Memories of late-night ice cream runs and whispered dreams flooded her mind, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she felt their dream was alive again. With a new confidence surging through her, she stepped forward, intertwining their fingers and standing by his side. "This isn't the end, it's just the beginning. We'll face whatever comes next together. Our story is our own to write." As if summoned by their resolve, the crowd began to shift, murmurs of camaraderie and curiosity bubbling forth. Someone spoke up from the back, "What kind of leaders would you be if you can't be honest?" A wave of agreement rippled across the gathering. The energy transformed, rooting itself in shared understanding rather than scorn. Tom felt freed. Not because he was shedding the weight of the past, but because he was choosing to honor it by embracing his present. Madeline's bravado faltered, the whispers around her dismissing her looming presence as she stepped back, inching away from the story she thought she controlled. It became clear to everyone, including herself, that Tom's legacy was no longer solely based on the name he bore but on the choices he made, and those choices included love, intimacy, and authenticity. "Tom," she spoke softly, the mask slipping. "You could choke on this decision. Or thrive," he countered, a soft but fierce intimacy binding the crowd together. "It's my choice. Not yours. For the first time, Sarah smiled, really smiled. Tom was back. The man who promised a future filled with laughter and dreams instead of veiled secrets. She felt a sudden lightness of freedom that pulled at all the right strings inside her. Let us live our truth, she beamed, turning to the guests. All of us. This is the moment. Let us support each other in our real stories. Buzz filled the air, hesitant at first, but building into a wave as others joined in the shared revelation. Each voice added to the chorus of support and unity, carving a new reality from the wreckage of the old. Tom smiled at Sarah, an understanding passing between them that felt sacred. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be without its hurdles, but standing together, they could face anything. The crowd began to clap, eyes shimmering with possibilities as the momentum surged into what felt like a celebration of new beginnings. With the chaos calmed, Tom held Sarah closer, the world narrowing until it was just the two of them. Whatever we face now, we'll do it side by side. You've chosen to be true to yourself, and that will change everything, she whispered, feeling buoyant with hope, and as life swirled around them, tangible support and acceptance blossoming in every corner, the shadows that once haunted him began to fade. He realized not only could he be a father, a husband, and a man who lived fully, but he could also be a legacy, one woven with love, authenticity, and light. As they basked in this fresh start together, Sarah and Tom knew the future was unwritten, but for the first time, they were ready to embrace it. No more masks, no more shadows. This was their moment. This was just the beginning. Now, if you found inspiration in this tale of courage and transformation, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm. Share your feelings and reactions in the comments. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support makes all the difference.